I get my I get my frames back? My goodness. All right. Finally. I should not have read all of those things. But Suikoden won, conquered. And what an interesting experience of a game. Um let's see. I think I think what I'm gonna say about this game is probably gonna catch me some flack here. All right. I'm sorry to say it. I think this game falls under the average category for me. I don't think it does anything exceptionally well. I think it just does everything acceptable or acceptably or however you want to phrase that word. Man, I'm still dropping frames. Good thing I'm recording all this. Um, it's uh, there was a game called Shining Resonance that I played, and or Shining Resonance Refrain, and it was kind of similar in this regard of just like it doesn't really do anything crazy, but what it does do is more than enough to just provide a standard run of the mill experience of a game. So I don't know if Suikoden 1 is as beloved as Suikoden 2, but from what I hear, Suikoden 2 just improves on everything in Suikoden 1. So, like, I guess I can definitely accept this game as a base platform for, for I don't know, for something to be built upon. And I think that's fine. I guess back in PS1 era, this game probably would have been quite nice. I mean, 6 party members, that in of itself is pretty impressive. Recruiting 108 people, with maybe I don't know 50-60% of them being usable characters or something like that. That's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, and in fact, there was a news article many weeks ago where it was talking about how Dragon's Dogma is one of the most influential games that nobody's ever copied, and that was the developer that was saying that, and that kind of got me thinking. Is Suikoden kind of in the same boat as that? I don't think I've seen or played any game that really copies the formula of Suikoden, despite it being such a beloved franchise and series. And it kind of poses one of those interesting questions to me of, is a game is a game really that legendary if nobody ever copies it? Uh, Legend of Dragoon is my favorite game of all time, but nobody ever copied that combat. So, what does that say about Legend of Dragoon? Everybody copies Final Fantasy. Everybody copies Dragon Quest. But where's the copies of Suikoden? You know? And a brother stopped dropping some frames. I guess I get the bad ending. Brother just goes off on the journey. Um, let's see. Yeah, we just gonna keep dropping frames. Let me see. For the story, was it satisfying? I don't know. I don't know. It I don't really have any issues with the story as a whole. Um, I really, really believe that the silent protagonist ruins shows a lot of potential that this game has. A lot of emotional moments that could have been in this game. They just don't happen because our character doesn't talk, and that hurts a lot. Uh, killing Teal McDowell, that is a huge moment, and not enough happens there. So that's kind of tragic. And have I played Grandia? Amazing Game of Combat. I have not played Grandia. I've seen a Let's Play of Grandia 1. Um, I don't know if I finished it. It was many years ago. It seemed like an interesting game. Let me see. Did the story feel complete? I would say it did. You know, we got ousted from our home and we got put on the run and we became the leader of the Liberation Army. And then, we fought back and killed the Emperor. And, there you go. How was the pacing? I guess the pacing was actually pretty good overall. I mean, you don't have to collect all 108 characters, so you can just kind of plow through this game in probably like 12 hours or something like that if you're pretty good. And some thoughts on the story. I think a lot of the choices that this game does, and I guess I have to keep in mind that choices back in 1996 in a video game is pretty revolutionary. But at least me playing it now, they feel kind of pointless. They don't let me choose, and I guess a lot of games in ye olden days they have that particular dynamic to them. But I would have the same opinion on them regardless. If you're gonna bother to put choices in the game, you might as well give them some purpose other than like, oh, you chose no, well, you need to choose yes, so we're just going to repeat the choice until you choose yes. It it's kind of bothersome. Becoming the leader of the Liberation Army is very abrupt and not very insightful into the characters. There's no discussion or choice of meaningful value. It's kind of disappointing that such a monumental decision gets treated in the same fashion as whether you're saving at an inn or not. I guess as alluded to here, I was really disappointed that there wasn't more things to go off of for this particular event. Becoming the leader of the Liberation Army is a big deal in this story, and the game does not approach that as a big deal. So I really wish they fleshed that out more. Let me see. The scene with Kirkus, the elf archer, reuniting with Sylvania was a nice bit of character development where, despite it needing more depth, it was nice for him. Lots of other characters and scenes needed a similar treatment. And some of those characters actually do get that treatment, such as Gremio gets a solid death scene. Pan gets a nice scene with Tio. There are some nice scenes in this game where we actually get some more character development on certain characters. But I feel like some characters needed more than others, and some characters got some and they didn't deserve any. So, there's that. Some characters like Jupo and Valeria join the Liberation Army without any acknowledgement that they've done so. For Jupo, he walks off from Lapon's mansion, never to be seen, and Valeria is captured by the Empire and magically appears in the party again. This is probably something that needed a little bit more oomph, I guess. It would have been nice to have that. If I start Suikoden 2 game with the data from this run, I won't be disappointed. Okay. Hopefully, the PS3 doesn't. Or hopefully, the PS3 kind of picks up on that. Finding Lucan was ridiculous. You have to enter a whirlpool you probably know is not passable in order to trigger the event needed to progress. This bugged me a lot. I know this is an old school game, and there's a different mentality for old school games where you basically do everything and you explore everywhere. and you kind of just like waste your own time trying to figure out things. But this this was a really problematic thing. Um, I went into a whirlpool fairly early on in the game, and I figured out, okay, I can't go into whirlpools. So when I initially went down that river and saw the whirlpool, was like, well, I can't go past that whirlpool. I don't have the tech for that. So I went back and I went searching all over the place for a whirlpool or for a place to progress. But the only hints that I got was Lucan lives in the city that starts with an R. And so it was it was a really rough time, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, I don't know how, but I just went into that whirlpool and figured out it was rapids. It would have been nice if it was a different color, or a different animation or something like that. Um, to just to note that it was entirely different and trying to go about it. So I I was put off by that. It's one of those things where it'll make you quit a game because you can go everywhere in the entire world and talk to every single NPC, and it won't help you understand that you need to walk into that whirlpool. It's rough times. Let me see. General Teal's death seemed pointless. Why does he die to his son, who obviously would never want to kill his father, but Kwanda survives? I kind of I'm gonna mention this a little bit later, but the one-on-one battles are a weird addition. I think I only did two in this entire game, and one was against Kwanda, who I got lucky against, and the other one was against Tio, who I don't know. It just like I know sword fights are dangerous, but you know, well, one, Tio doesn't use a sword; he uses a staff or tier. I mean, and two, like I feel like Tyr is gonna go into that battle trying to take every opportunity he can not to kill his father, but just disable him, like he does every single other person in the world. You know, one of those writers' agencies types of things. Oh, let me see. Let me see. What's the worst RPG dungeon I've ever encountered? Uh, I'll answer that real quick by saying there's a dungeon in Black Sigil where you can't use any magic, and at that time I didn't have any enough healing items to use. That was rough times. For gameplay mechanics and design, what gameplay elements stand out? Six party members on a PS1 game. Crazy. Just like how many frames I'm still dropping. Jesus. This is the world telling me that I'm not supposed to be streaming at 11:40 at night. Um, Free will is a wonderful command, especially in a party of six characters. I like this idea, and I really wish more games would implement, an auto battle system. It's quite helpful, and it helps with the tediousness of going through random battles all the time. It helps out a lot. And I have here no run button. Um, you need a rune to run in this game, and that's kind of annoying. And by kind of annoying, I mean really annoying. Um, it kind of forced me to make Gremio my run person, and when he died, I lost that particular holy rune, which I apparently never get back. Which I don't actually have that on here, but when people die, you don't get their stuff back. I don't like that either. But um, basically forced me to use Stallion in the party, which I actually didn't mind using Stallion after I figured out he had a unity attack with Kirkus. That put him in the party permanently. Also, being able to run on the world map, that was really nice as well. But yeah, I uh, don't gate the run button. Nobody wants to walk. especially in a game where you have to walk a lot. Um, Man, and this is probably the biggest negative of this entire game. If someone walked up to me and said, "What is the biggest thing that you dislike about Suikoden 1?" I would say the item management. Um, this is probably one of the worst item management systems I have ever used in any video game I've ever played that comes to my knowledge. Um, Legend of Dragoon could be pretty bad, but only because it has like 36 items maximum, and you are really, really strapped for cash, and you're really, really strapped for bag space in that game. But item management in this game is so awful. Um, like you can't do things in the same screen. If I want to move a piece of equipment somewhere, I have to go to the items, and then I have to go to the character, then I have to select the item, then I have to choose to move it, then I have to select the new character, then it goes there, then I get out of that menu, go down to equip, then I gotta select the slot that I need to equip it in, then I need to select the item, which is not automatically defaulted to. So I select it, and then I finally equip that item. It's it's super obnoxious. And then you don't even get to see like all the stats that you need to see either. And so uh, there's just way too much going on uh in there. Uh Definitely needs a ton of improvements. Um, no tutorial for army battles or 1v1 combat. Man, I got so lucky in my first army battle, and I got so lucky in my first 1v1 battle. I basically just had to figure those out on my own. And again, it's an old game. There's probably no tutorials for anything in this game. But when you have an established combat system and you're moving into uh and then you introduce new combat systems, you should probably explain what's going on. Have it make more sense. Oh, those frames are still dropping. This one's definitely gonna have to be something I gotta uh, upload because oof. Let me see. Right before fighting Kwanda's army, Tyr is given the a choice option on whether to give the signal to attack or not. Despite choosing the option of not being ready, he's forced into the fight anyways. This kind of goes into my point of a little bit earlier of choices being pointless. But this was particularly egregious because um, I wasn't ready to do this fight, and it's like I just need like give me like 5 minutes, let me heal up my people, let me save, or let me just give me 5 minutes to prepare. And the game is just like, no, come on, man, that ain't cool. Let me see. In the grand scheme of things, are characters like Luke and Hellion actually good characters? They're short range characters with no attack and very low defensive values. Their worth comes out of their spells, but when those are gone, they're worthless? Question mark. Probably food for thought there. I guess technically, I've never been in a boss fight where I ran out of spells, but maybe in that final boss fight, that would have been rough. Um, Against the scallop slash clam guy and then Sonya, that would have been, or that was rough. But after bringing in Luke, well, actually, yeah, they were pretty. Hellion was useless in the first one, and then she died. Let's see. Cool magic system that does something different from the standard magic point values. I appreciate that. Thanks, video game. Between the blinking mirror and the teleport chick at the base, fast travel is fantastic and not annoying. Definitely appreciated the fast travel system in this game. One of the really shining examples of what this game actually does really well. And one of those things that games could really uh, take after is a really simple to use fast travel system. Let me see. The Liberation Army castle changing layouts is a cool feature, but can be quite annoying. There's a lot of space, and the castle upgrades at strange times, forcing you to relearn the layout with no warning. And then a little sub point, I was notified that this happens when you recruit more people. Um, I wish that, there was like maybe like a notification, like, hey, we're changing the layout or something like that, or like some scaffolding or something. I don't know. That's a lot of work. Whatever. NPCs blocking paths and having to wait for them to move is obnoxious. Holy cow! I think I spent maybe like 3 or 4 minutes total. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm just sitting there waiting for an NPC to move out of the way so I can go somewhere. Those rough times. The lack of a Millich boss fight was disappointing, especially considering he kills Gremio. On top of that, there doesn't seem to be any sort of consequence for recruiting him despite other members being opposed to the whole idea. This was just another one of those missed opportunities where there should have been more dialogue happening and the silent protagonist really ruining the experience of what could have been done if the character just had his own personality and thoughts. Um, almost done. Let me see. Unable to view what runes do or what rune spells do. This is super obnoxious, but that's enough said. Unable to equip runes at any time. I mentioned this kind of later on in the playthrough, but it would have been really nice if I could just mix and match spells and things like that and runes. Um, it would have kind of sucked with the limited item space, but it would have been a kind of a cool thing to have. I don't have really anything to say about the combat. Basically standard turn-based combat, and it was fine. The dungeons, holy fudge, was the first boss difficult. Holy cow. I won just barely. And I don't know how. I'm still confused. Some places randomly turned out to be dungeons, like LaPonte's house. This was a really weird thing. I don't know why this. Well, it's an old school JRPG. That answers basically everything. There's definitely some practical dungeon design issues with this game. 100%. There's no cardinal. Well, I mean, it does kill Gremio, I guess. But then again, there's 108 characters. So, yeah, there's no cardinal sins in this game, surprisingly. For miscellaneous sound, music's pretty great. I'm definitely going to go listen to the soundtrack after I'm done. In regards to voice acting, there's none of it, but there's no dialogue from the main character. He's just a silent protagonist, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to make silent protagonist a cardinal sin for me. It's just gonna happen. There's no way it can be avoided. Graphics were great. Replay value. I'm gonna say I don't really see any replay value in this. In the sense of, like, if I were to go back and play it, will I get a different experience than when I did the first time? And really, the only different experience that I'm going to get from this is Pawn won't die. And so I'll get to see the final ending. But I don't think different endings are really worth playing through an entire game all over again, and at least for me. And if the developer is watching, I think you have a solid base for the game. And from everything that I've heard, Suikoden 2 totally improves upon nearly everything, if not everything, in this game. And so I'm definitely looking forward to playing the second one and seeing just how far those improvements go. Because in a lot of respects, Suikoden 1 is a very rough game. Um, you know, it in many respects it could just be called an average game. Actually, it doesn't do much of anything especially well. So, um, I definitely look forward to seeing two, and hopefully the subsequent ones after that. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for my thoughts on this game. I'm and I dropped 17,000 frames in in the span of my thoughts, which means my internet does not like me tonight. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for my thoughts, and yeah, yeah.